The downside of my little basement studio is it's right next to the room where the furnace is.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but that's
So
fine.
It blows like crazy in the wintertime. So now if anybody gets out of bed before we finish, they'll be freezing cold and they'll be unhappy. So we have to get started.
Let's get started then.
All right. So Rob, I hear you watched Star Wars: A New Hope for the first time, and it reminds me of the fact that every day there's a person born who's never seen Star Wars, and I'm not trying to say that you were born yesterday, but you might have been.
It's entirely possible. Yeah, I actually watched 3 Star Wars films.
Okay, which ones?
Force Awakens first, and then I watched A New Hope, and then yesterday I watched Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, was that the first for all 3?
Yeah, I'd never seen. Well, I say that I think I might have seen Episode 1 when it came out, but I was pretty young. I don't really remember it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to the best of my knowledge, this is pretty much the first time I've ever watched any Star Wars film.
And by Episode 1, you mean A New Hope?
No. Episode 1, Phantom Menace thing.
Okay. Oh, Phantom Menace, you said. All right, go back over the ones you saw again. I don't think you said Phantom Menace. You said A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and something else?
And The Force Awakens.
Phantom Menace? Okay.
And The Force
Phantom
Awakens.
Force Awakens. That's what you said. You said The Force Awakens, not Phantom Menace.
Yes.
Got it.
No, Phantom Menace, whenever that came out, I guess I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something. I probably watched Phantom Menace when it came out, but I don't really remember it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the 3 that I've recently watched, Force Awakens, A New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. All right. So what order did you... So you started with Phantom Menace, right?
With Force Awakens.
Oh, The Force Awakens. You can cut that out. All right. So you started with Force Awakens. Tell me what. So this was your first time exposed to Star Wars, except through, I guess third-party culture, right? The memes that you see on the internet.
Yeah. So 40 years or however long Star Wars has been out of it being part of the culture. But yeah, I hadn't watched any, and I kind of been looking at The Force Awakens because I thought it kind of looks quite cool. I watched the trailer. I didn't really know what was going on, but I was like, I'll watch it anyway. And yeah, I mean, spaceships, shooting, explosions. It looked really cool, so I watched it. And then I decided I should maybe watch the original trilogy. So yeah, then I watched A New Hope.
Nice. So I guess of the 3, what was your favorite?
Yeah, I think The Force Awakens was my favorite, probably just because it's a modern film.
Right.
Because if I'm honest, of course it was made in, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back were late 70s. The special effects really don't hold up that well. It's impressive for the time, but kind of watching it now, I'm just like, oh, that really doesn't look so good.
Well, and it's like special effects of a whole different kind, right? Because it was done largely with models and that sort of thing instead of with computer graphics.
Right, exactly. Now, I don't know which version, because I know there's various different versions where special effects have been done. I watched whatever one Amazon had, which I assume is one of these updated ones with the extra special effects and the like. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. I wasn't blown away by it. I think I said to you when I was watching it that it's kind of weird because every kind of quotable line and cool things in it, I was already aware of, even if I didn't exactly know the context. So I kind of knew what everyone was going to say.
Yeah, that would be a really weird experience. I mean, it's funny to listen to you talk about it only because for me it was a new experience when I first saw it, because I saw it as a kid. I think I was in 5th grade or so, maybe 12 years old, 11, something like that when I first saw it. and it was just in the movie theater, and there was nothing like that at the time. I mean, it was just the scrolling words on the screen at the beginning alone, followed by the giant Star Destroyer. That alone just blew people away in a way that just took their breath away. I mean, that sort of thing didn't exist in movie making at the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can certainly see, like you say, that opening scene where the Star Destroyer comes in, like, it wasn't immediately obvious to me that, like, it was done with models and various other techniques. Like, it did look good. It's kind of some of the other stuff doesn't look quite so good during the film, but yeah, I can see it, as you say, at the time it was an amazing kind of feat of special effects and everything else.
Right. Yeah, no, it was, I mean, and of course, you know, I made you watch, to give you a little perspective, I made you watch the Star Wars Holiday Special, at least part of it, right?
I don't know why you did that. Do you hate me?
I did it to show you how bad it could be, and compared to the movie, because that was, you know, just a television special where they were trying to shoehorn in elements of Star Wars into a strange holiday spectacular. I'm actually a little amazed that video even exists still on YouTube, because I would think that it's largely an embarrassment to whoever was involved in it. But it's, you know, they did a holiday special shortly after Star Wars came out. I don't remember if it was 77 or 78 when that came out.
78 according to the YouTube description.
Okay, so you know, you think about it. At the time, Star Wars had been out for probably about a year. There was no way to see it except in the theater. It was probably still running in the theater, because I remember when I was a kid it running for over a year in the theater, and I saw it something like 12, 13 times in the theater. But because you didn't have the internet, you didn't have access to Star Wars, and so there was a lot of pent-up demand, so they put it on television, and they did a really terrible job.
I don't know what this, like, the first, like, 15 minutes is just Chewbacca's family kind of screaming at each other, but there's no context to what on earth is going on.
No, and it becomes kind of this weird variety show, which was a big thing in the 70s, where, you know, there's a little song, little dance, little skits, very strange thing.
Yeah, everything looked very, very weird. Mark Hamill is wearing an extraordinary amount of makeup in the TV special.
Yeah, and the whole thing it's just really poorly put together, and you realize that, I mean, for me at least, it's a contrast between watching some sort of space type of television show was like in the 70s compared to Star Wars, and then you can kind of get a sense for why people were blown away from the movie compared to what was available otherwise.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. I mean, I didn't watch the whole holiday special. I started watching it and I was like, I can't bear this. So I kind of just skipped to random little bits where I saw some thumbnails that I thought might be interesting. And there's like a woman singing, like just doing a song for 5 minutes, and just some very, very strange things in this holiday special.
Yeah, it was really strange. But I guess getting back to the movie, what part of it did you like the best? I mean, I guess if I had to pick something, I would say I really like the dumpster scene where they're about to get squashed in the dumpster, and of course the end when they're trying to destroy the Death Star.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the destroying the Death Star scene, although I've, to the best of my knowledge, never actually seen it, I felt it was very weird to watch it, because I felt like I knew exactly what was going to happen and I knew what I was going to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a great scene, but as I say, because I haven't watched it at all, but had all these cultural references, it was hard for me to be kind of surprised by it.
Right. Well, you probably played it in a video game at some point too. At a minimum, the Lego Star Wars video game, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've played. Yeah, I think I have actually. So of course, like, that's just like another place where I'm getting all these references from.
Right. And it's been done on The Simpsons, and it's been done on. I mean, the cultural references for Star Wars are everywhere. So yeah, that's interesting. And then you watched Empire Strikes Back after that.
Yeah, I watched that last night because I had a couple of hours spare, and I was like, oh, just watch the second one, see what that one's about.
Yeah, what did you think of that?
This one is very obviously a better film. Like, they were clearly a lot better, even in the kind of, I guess it was, 2 or 3 years between them. They'd clearly got a lot better with the special effects and just the storytelling, and the acting was a lot better.
Right.
I was kind of surprised that there was a lot of kind of, the acting didn't seem amazing in A New Hope, but Empire Strikes Back seemed a lot better in kind of all aspects of it.
Yeah, well, Mark Hamill at the time was really a relatively unknown actor. I mean, he was not a big deal back then, so that's part of it, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And as I say, that really kind of stands out watching Empire Strikes Back. It's really obvious that they've got significantly better in those 3 years.
Yeah, I think the scenes on Hoth are really, really cool. I like those a lot.
Yeah, those are really cool. And then when you kind of get to the end with where Luke finds out that Darth Vader's his father, like, it's not a shock to me because I live on the planet Earth.
Right.
I've kind of heard this before.
You've gotten that spoiler before, right?
Exactly. But it's a cool scene, but again, it kind of had the same problem as A New Hope for me, that I knew what was coming. I knew it as soon as I kind of saw him on that big long platform. I was like, oh, it's this scene. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think you realize too when you watch it that the limitations they were working within, which especially when they were dealing with Yoda, who was a puppet, a little different than later movies when it was all CG. There was a lot less they could do with him, but it worked pretty well overall, I thought.
Yeah, it was that. As I say, I think just everything about Empire Strikes Back feels a lot better than it did in A New Hope.
Yeah.
I think a lot of improvements.
Right, and I think some of the reasons that monkeying with these films later, and George Lucas would add CG special effects to these movies. One of the problems with that is that it almost makes the non-CG effects look worse, because you start, even though they're just little, some of them are fairly subtle and small changes, you start to see the seams more, because that all of a sudden Yoda's no longer a puppet, and you can tell when he's not a puppet.
Yeah, it's kind of, as I say, I'm assuming that whatever version it is that I got from Amazon is the one with all the extra special effects and stuff like that George Lucas added.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to find the non-special effects ones anymore, unless you have a copy of something that was on a VCR tape at one time. There are things obviously floating around the internet. I haven't really watched any of those, but you can find those if you want them.
I was aware that they existed, but I was just like, I can't. I'm not that invested into watching these films. I'm not going to go out and kind of find despecialized versions or anything.
So are you gonna watch the rest of them?
I'm gonna watch Return of the Jedi, definitely. Mm-hmm. Am I gonna watch the newer trilogy, like episode 1 to 3? Maybe. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I kind of hear a lot of negative stuff about those. I don't know if that's just something that people just say they hate it, or whether they're actually genuinely bad films.
They're not great.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll definitely give Return of the Jedi a watch, but I'm not sure about the next 3.
I feel like Return of the Jedi was when George Lucas started going off the deep end a little bit, in the sense that it's full of it's got these furry little bear type creatures that the Ewoks, and it's a little too cutesy at times, but in kind of a Jar Jar Binks kind of strange creature way that just kind of comes off the rails. But overall, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, what really kind of I don't know, prompted me to watch any of them really was I watched the Rogue One trailer. And I thought, that looks really cool. This just looks like a cool movie, like spaceship shooting, whatever. But I feel like I can't really put all the references together in my head because I've got no context for them. So I thought I should at least watch these ones so that I can kind of understand references a bit better when I'm watching these other films.
Yeah, because that's set before A New Hope, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I'm no Star Wars expert, and when it comes to movies, I just want to be entertained. I'm not super picky. I know that there are a lot of people who have already found at least 10 things wrong about what I've said about Star Wars. On the other hand, I just like watching the movies. I mean, I've always enjoyed these movies. I'm not a big fan of episodes 1 through 3, but I do really like A New Hope through Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad I watched them. I feel like if they hadn't made any newer films, Force Awakens and then Rogue One, I probably wouldn't have cared. I probably would have just carried on with my life. But I don't want to feel like I don't want to miss out on new films that are good just because I haven't watched a few old films. Mm-hmm. Do you know? Like, I'm sure I could have watched them anyway. But like I said, I'd like to at least piece together and have some context to the references and story and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a worthwhile thing to do. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is what's happening now is a reboot of the entire ecosystem of Star Wars, right? But it is built on a foundation, and understanding the foundation, even if you don't love it, watching them at least once to kind of get the structure and where it's coming from makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it makes the newer movies more meaningful. Yeah. Okay. So any Star Wars in the plans for the rest of the weekend for tonight?
Yeah. If I get time later today, I might do Return of the Jedi. But other than that, as I say, if I find time or if I just feel like it, I might watch episodes 1 to 3. But other than that, it'll just be Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm not going to encourage you to watch 1 through 3. I mean, they probably are. I don't know. If you have time on your hands, go for it. But they're not super great. I
might put them on in the background when I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
Just so I can kind of pick up whatever's going on in those. But yeah, I'm not massively excited about watching those. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for Star Wars, I guess. I mean, it's good. It's good to know that you've joined modern society and actually know what Star Wars is all about now, not just the kind of the secondhand references.
Yeah, definitely.
So one of the other things I thought we could talk about a little bit is Apple TV, because there was a pretty big news about it this week, and maybe I'm overly sensitive to it, but it felt like the whole internet just kind of shrugged its shoulders over the news, because I think it was so long in coming that no one was really paying attention or really cared all that much, and that's the ability now to buy Apple TV apps on your iPhone or on a Mac, which is unique because, for instance, you can't do that with a Mac app. You can't buy a Mac app on your iOS device and have it show up on your Mac, and you can't do that even with iPad apps on your iPhone. So this is one of the first situations where you can buy something for a wholly separate platform on an iOS device or on Mac OS, and you can do that now with Apple TV apps.
Yeah, this was kind of weird. Like, I saw your story that you'd written on Mac Stories, and a lot, as you were saying, like, I just kind of went, oh great, like, why is it taking you a year to do this? I appreciate that work goes into every feature, whatever it is, but over a year since the Apple TV launched, like, I think at this point everyone's probably not that excited about apps on the Apple TV anymore. That they've got all the main ones they want.
Right.
It's nice to have this, but who really cares?
Yeah, I think in the long run it's going to take a while because people are not paying that much attention. But I think in the long run it'll help, at least with one category, which were the Apple TV only apps. I think developers had largely stopped making those because there was no way to market them. And the way this story came out was really a one-paragraph story on a developer blog that said you could use the iTunes Link Maker web app to make links for Apple TV apps. And that's really all it said. I mean, it did say that you could make the links and then download them, but it wasn't real explicit about how it worked. And the way it works is if you go to this web app, you can search for Apple TV apps, and then you can create a link, which can be an affiliate link if you want it to be, and post it on the web. And if somebody taps on an iOS device or clicks using their Mac, it actually opens up the iTunes store or the App Store, and you can download it if it's free or purchase it if it's a paid app right there from your your iPhone, iPad, or Mac. And what's a little odd about it is that if you go to the iTunes store or the App Store and try searching for an Apple TV app, you won't find them. They're not searchable in those apps. You can only do it through these links. And I've been looking into the links a little bit more deeply too, because, for my affiliate linking app Blink, I wanted to be able to allow people to create Apple TV links. And I can't because it's not part of the iTunes search API. I can take existing links that people find somewhere else and help them convert those using their own affiliate links. But right now, there's no way to really search outside of this iTunes link maker web app that you can find on the web on one of the developer sites.
Yeah, this is kind of, as you say, it's good that they've done it, because especially in the long run, if you're a developer, you need to be able to just, if somebody clicks your link and they can't download it there and then, like, that's going to be 95% of the time that's going to be a lost sale. Like, most people aren't going to do what I do or did when I had the Apple TV and like write something down or remind myself to do it when I get home. So it is good, but I mean, at the same time, it just feels so late.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. I mean, the App Store on Apple TV came out in October of last year, October 2015, something like the second or third week of October. And now here we are, the second week of November of 2016, and we just have this now. This may be a result of the fact that perhaps it's the rumors are true that the Apple TV was meant to have this service behind it that was supposed to be more TV focused, and then took on a more app focused approach because they weren't able to cut deals with various television networks. I don't know, but be that as it may, it still did take about 13 months before this sort of thing came out. It's good for, especially as I said, people who have Apple TV apps only, because at least if you have an iOS component, you can always link people to the iOS app, and then the Apple TV app downloads with it and shows up on your Apple TV. I mean, the downside of that, obviously, is that you can't charge separately for the Apple TV app. So I think that's been a drag on development for the Apple TV, which means now if it encourages Apple TV-only apps, there may be a little bit of a renaissance in development for the Apple TV, which I'm hoping to see, because I haven't seen an Apple TV app that I was excited about for quite a while at this point.
No, I don't think, if I'm honest, I mean, if you remember last year, I started that site to kind of highlight Apple TV apps.
Right.
Which is dead now, for various different reasons. But I think I probably stopped doing that in maybe December, and I don't think I've downloaded an Apple TV app since. I've switched over to the Fire TV now, which we'll get into in a minute, but I kind of just want to download the apps that I need every day or every week or whatever. I never really go to the App Store. Like, it just doesn't feel like, as much as Tim Cook can say, the future of TV is apps, I just don't. Once people kind of have specific needs fulfilled, they don't really need to download that many apps anymore.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's ever going to be anything like the iOS, iPhone App Store, because the apps that are useful on a television are much more limited. I mean, it's music, video, maybe a few more informational type apps like weather apps maybe, or things like that. But it's definitely a very small subset of what's useful on a phone. A couple other little things about it. Joe Steele had asked me, and I went and tried this out. He asked whether family sharing worked with the new system, and it does. I had one of my kids download an app. I sent him a link, download it, and then if you go into the App Store and you go into your purchases, under the recent purchases, there's a family sharing tab, and you go down there, and then you can go into each person on your family sharing account. You can go into their, highlight their name, and it'll show all the apps that they've downloaded. So it works with that, which is pretty nice. I just think it's a little odd and too bad that you can't find these through the normal app stores on iOS. I suppose that's in part to avoid confusion, but they've badged these apps so they, if it's Apple TV only, there's a little badge under the icon that says Apple TV only. Yeah,
it's kind of strange. I mean, this is a step forward. and I hope that, as you say, they'll maybe get to a point where you'll be able to search for these from the Mac or, on iOS. But, this is a good start for now. But as I mentioned, I don't really care anymore because I bought a Amazon Fire TV.
Yeah, how is that?
Yeah, it's fine. The menus don't have the polish or they just don't look as nice as the Apple TV. And it doesn't have volume on the remote, which is kind of a pain. But I worked from home maybe 2 weeks ago. There was a day I was working from home, and it was the first time that I'd worked from home since I had Spotify. And I realised there was no good way for me to play Spotify on the Apple TV. The Spotify app doesn't have AirPlay built in, and using the Mac's built-in kind of use the Apple TV as a speaker was really buggy.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of looked it up, like, are Spotify working on an Apple TV app? And they made a statement a few weeks ago saying, no, we're not. And of course, the Apple TV famously doesn't have Amazon Prime, an Amazon Prime app. So I was just like, do you know what? Forget this. The Apple TV does not work for what I want anymore. I was pretty hopeful and maybe naive last year that Amazon would actually build their app and hopefully, Spotify would. So yeah, I bought a Fire TV that has all the apps I want. As I say, the UI is not as nice, but for the most part, it just works the same.
Now it's a little box like the Apple TV, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's kind of wider, but a lot thinner than the Apple TV. But yeah, it's just a little black box. And as I say, it doesn't have volume on the remote, but I'm kind of just living with that and just using my TV remote for volume.
Yeah, I did something similar. I got a Roku TV it's been probably almost 2 years ago now, mainly for Amazon Prime, and also for Spotify, although I don't use Spotify like I used to. I don't subscribe to it anymore, and the ads drive me a little crazy because they're almost always the same, which drives me a little bonkers.
Sure, yeah. So
have you listened to a Spotify ad lately?
I've never listened to a Spotify ad. When I signed up for Spotify, I was like, right, I'm all in and just paid for it straight away.
Well,
so
you
I've
had
never actually heard one.
Right, that you had that very low student pricing too, I think, if I remember right, for a few years, right?
Yeah, I've got that for the next 11, 12 months or something.
Oh, you still have it, huh?
I only signed up, I guess, a couple of months ago.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got, I guess, 10, 11 months left, something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been exploring all the discounts that Owen gets now that he's in college, and for my own benefit. So I'm becoming a college student all over again. Shh! Don't tell anybody.
No. So yeah, I'm down to one Apple product that I use on a regular basis now. I've got rid of my phone. I've got rid of the Apple TV. I'm just the Mac now.
What's the update on MacBook for you? I know you were in the market to buy one. Have you pulled the trigger yet?
No, I think maybe I'm going to stick it out for another year, just because the price rises put me off a little bit, and I just figure maybe the economy will stabilize itself a little bit. It's unlikely the prices will rise again because I think Apple have upped the price, kind of looking to the future that will kind of cover any issues. Mm-hmm. So I think I can last another year. As I said, I don't think the prices are going to go up, so I'm not really missing out too much.
What year is your current MacBook?
I think it's 2014. What year?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's only 2 years old. I think 2 maybe 2.5.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
No, I just like new shiny things.
Same. I want a new MacBook too, but I don't really need one. I have a 2015, which, the 2015 got an incredibly small speed bump compared to yours, I think. So we effectively have the same MacBook, I think.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a case that I actually need a new laptop. But, if I change my mind in a couple of months, I can, pick one up, and hopefully it won't take weeks to arrive either. It'll just be kind of next day or whatever.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Here, I've got a mini rant, Apple rant for you.
Go for it.
Which is iCloud. And iCloud is great. Well, iCloud is great until it's not, until it stops working, right?
Yeah.
And I noticed at one point that in messages, the avatars, the little pictures for people, on some devices I would have the pictures, some I wouldn't, and it was driving me crazy. And it's a little thing, but it's a good way to avoid sending a text to the wrong person if you have their picture sitting at the top of the message thread, right?
Yeah.
So I like to have that. Yeah, I like to have that. And I realized that it was, I finally realized that it was tied to contacts and that my contacts weren't properly syncing. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, so, and I've got a lot of different devices that have all this on it. I spent a few weeks just messing around. Sometimes I'd get something working on one thing and not on the other. Eventually, I signed out of iCloud on everything except for the one Mac where I knew it was actually working, and turned everything off, left it off for a while, and then turned them on one by one, deleting everything from the local device, and then turned them back on and synced it back, which, first of all, it takes forever when you have a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you do photos, photo library or whatever. Sure. That takes forever. And so ever since my Retina MacBook Pro, the fans have been going bonkers because it's slowly but surely catching up on all my photos.
Oh God, it's just, yeah. Did you see that tweet that was doing the rounds? It was they put 1,000 text files in a folder on iCloud Drive a year ago, and it now only has 999.
Oh, jeez.
They deliberately did this just to test iCloud Drive, and one of them is now missing.
Oh, man. Yeah, I got it all working again, but I don't know how most people would get it all working again. I mean, it took me a while to figure out that it was tied to contacts. I wasn't sure. I mean, I guess I should have known where those avatars were being pulled from, but I didn't realize that I thought the problem was with iMessages at first.
Yeah.
And so I was troubleshooting that for a while, and then I realized, no, it's just that it's not communicating properly with the database of contacts. And then I realized, oh, my contacts are a little different here and there, or they weren't different. They just weren't somehow syncing up to the cloud or being pulled down from the cloud into messages. There was some broken link there or corruption or something. Fortunately, there was a version that worked, and I got it back to that version, and everything seems to be fine now. But it was kind of it was a problem for about a month for me.
Yeah, that's not ideal. I'm kind of, yeah. It's just, every story I hear about iCloud, I'm like, I'm just so glad I'm not using it anymore. Because I was lucky. I never actually had any problems with it or anything like that. But I'm really just worried that something would happen.
Well, and that's the thing, is it worked perfectly for me for a very long time. And then when all this was going on, and part of it's my own fault. I mean, I know how this happened probably. It happened because I was on all sorts of different betas, on all sorts of devices, both Sierra betas, iOS betas. It's my own fault in that sense because I'm doing all that stuff. And I'm sure it got broken because of that. But I got myself into that position where I had to check everything and make sure it was all set up properly because I wasn't getting text messages from some people, or I was getting that weird out of order threading of messages for a while. I think I've fixed it all, but it can be hard to fix once it gets scrambled.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's my hot tip. That's my hot tip.
You got it sorted.
Yeah, my hot tip is to check out contacts if you're having trouble.
Cool. Should we wrap it up for the week, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. So the show notes will be ruminatepodcast.com/33. Yeah, I got it right this week. You can find me. I'm at rmlewisuk on Twitter. And John, where can people find you?
You can find me at John Voorhees on Twitter and writing on macstories.net.
Perfect. And we'll be back in 2 weeks.
All right. Talk to you later, Rob.
Bye.